Hello, and welcome to another edition of Ask the Professor, where we respond to actual viewers' questions on economics, on political philosophy, on the course of history, on English kings, obscure or infamous, on why modern buildings are so horrible, on all those things that go into our life together.
Hey, and I almost cheated last time because I was wanting to ask you about Donald Trump and I fished for a question. I got one. It's an excellent question. I love it. What does it say about the U.S. political system after, it's not over yet, but we're getting there. We're headed towards a race for the presidential election where the Democrat imposter will be running against the Republican imposter in the final round.
It's enough to make you tear your hair out in clumps to contemplate. And it's not even obvious to me, is this question about Hillary Clinton versus Donald Trump or Bernie Sanders versus Donald Trump? I don't think Sanders is going to make it. He's scared the establishment. It's a real sign of trouble in the Democratic Party and in the electorate that such a person could do as well as he has. It's also a sign of the weakness in the establishment candidate, Hillary Clinton. On the Republican side, I understand the anger and frustration that lead people to wish Donald Trump was a suitable candidate. I know some people are offended by my attitude toward Donald Trump, but I'm telling you what, the man is unfit to be president and he's not a conservative. We can do better. We should do better. And Ted Cruz apparently, is covered in personality repellent or something, but he is a Tea Partier. He's an authentic, original meaning of the Constitution guy. He really believes in limited government, and I think he could beat Hillary Clinton. The question is how he gets to that position, and the answer is if Donald Trump doesn't get enough delegates to win on the first ballot at the Republican convention, I don't think he wins. But all of this is a bit beside the point, as well as possibly being wrong. I didn't think Trump would last this long. I'm dismayed by it. Yeah, this is a sign of real trouble. And it is a sign of trouble that the political establishment on both sides of the aisle needs to get a grip on. Too many pundits are just sneering at the Republicans. Doomed, bigoted, white old men, yuckity, 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 yuck, look at Donald Trump, what an idiot. And they're not focusing on Bernie Sanders, the strength of his insurgency, or on the artificiality and general loathsomeness of Hillary Clinton. What a candidate to have the establishment behind. People know that government is not working. And people in government don't know it. People in the political system are the same self-satisfied smart alecks they've always been. These young people with their shaved backs of their necks and these suits that belong on a man 2 decades older, and their absolute ignorant arrogance and fatuity and complacency. The establishment needs shaking up. We just need somebody better than these people to do it. But government is unaffordable. It is cutting itself too big a slice of the pie. Public servants get far too much job security, far too high salaries, far too lavish pensions. The rest of us cannot afford to support them in the style to which they're accustomed. And now governments everywhere are borrowing money. And they say, well, borrow it for investments, blah, 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 blah. But the majority of the costs of government are wages and salaries and pensions. So we are borrowing money in order to pay public servants more than the national average wage for doing work that is in many cases less productive. I'm not knocking these people. They're good people. They're family, they're friends, they're neighbors. They mean well. But we can't afford this. And most people get this. Their job is insecure. They don't have a pension. They will look at the future with grave concern, and they look at government and think they don't get it. And they don't. Now, a note of hope here. If you look at previous American presidential contests, you can see that things have frequently been this bad. Politics often attracts displeasing people with unrealistic attitudes. It was Henry Adams who said that the progression of presidents from Washington to Grant should alone have been enough to make Darwin abandon the theory of evolution. And the Grant administration, though Grant was a great general, but he was an awful president. And the late 19th century was not an edifying spectacle. There have been other terrible races too. A lot of people would have felt, for instance, that Herbert Hoover running against Al Smith wasn't exactly a great deal either. But here we do see legitimate discontent with the system. And in a funny way, I think so in Canada too. People voted for Justin Trudeau not despite the fact that he wasn't a typical politician, but because he wasn't. Every time his adversary said, he's not one of us, people said, really? Hey, that's great. I think I'll vote for him.
Even I had sympathy for that line.
Yeah. And I still maintain he has no idea how to govern. He's going to prove a bust because he doesn't know what's wrong with government either. He thinks if he comes in, he's just the great him and it'll all work out, which is far too similar to the attitude of most politicians. But yeah, people ought to wake up and smell the Trump. Something's wrong in American politics. Yeah, not too close. Well, he probably uses deodorant. Smell the hairspray.
Let's not go there.
But there is a problem when people are so alienated from the political process that they're flocking to Bernie Sanders, who again I think is unfit to be president and who isn't even a Democrat, or to Donald Trump. And, the backup to Donald Trump is Ted Cruz, who the Washington establishment hates. That's why he's in second place. And there's a warning sign, but nobody wants to admit that government's not working, that it cannot continue on the path that it's been going. We cannot all live off handouts, that we cannot have the state dictating minute details of our personal behavior without becoming lesser people. We have to stand on our own 2 feet. And again, I'm going to come back to our documentaries, both on fixing the Constitution and the one on the right to arms. We are saying that in Canada, the government can be small because the people are big. But let's not wait until the government shrinks us and then falls to bits, bankrupt morally and economically. Let's seize it back now. Not in the sour and unprincipled Trump way, because he really doesn't have principles. I mean that in a literal sense, he does not have principles of political economy. But by being hopeful, determined, shoulder to the wheel, a smile on our faces, we can take it back constructively. But we need to take it back, and that's the meaning of the Sanders-Trump phenomenon.
Right, and plus if the establishment never listens when people have legitimate complaints about them, then you get Trump.
Yeah, what did they expect was going to happen? And $1 trillion deficits and unable to guard the border. And even in the United States, the defense establishment is weakening. The rising Chinese threat. And the government is wandering around in a bubble. They call it inside the Beltway in Washington. We call it K1A here in Canada. But the things that preoccupy them and the way they understand the world is conspicuous nonsense.
K1A, that refers to the postal code of
That's the postal code, yeah, that is on
you have
both
to
sides
explain
of the
these
river.
things, okay?
That's
Not
just
everybody
Canada.
lives in
People-
Ottawa.
People know this.
Do they?
I hope they do. That's where your tax money goes to die, folks. K1A.
All right.
Say goodbye to it, because it's history.
All right. Thanks for that, I guess. All right, folks, if you want to play along, the URL on your screen will take you to the page where you can ask your question of the professor. Thank you, and see you next time.